Hey everyone, I'm Debangan. I'm a product manager at HeadSpin. And today, before we dive into the topic, right, first of all, thanks everyone for joining. Today's session is on app performance peer benchmarking. Really excited to walk you all through how continuous data driven performance comparisons can give you a real competitive edge. And by the end of this webinar, I really hope I'll be able to convince you why benchmarking against your peers, not just your own past releases, is the missing piece in the most quality strategies. Now, before we dive in, before we get into the details, so that all of us can warm up a little bit, I want to start with a question. And I think there's going to be a poll, so you'll actually get options. You can pick and choose the options. So for the first question, think about your own behavior as a customer. When you visit a website or use an app and it performs poorly, like things like slow loading, crashes, lag, how likely are you to come back to that website, right? Take a moment and think about the number. We'll reveal it soon. In 30 seconds probably. Oh, okay, so I can see what all of you are voting for. Okay, so I think most of you have gotten it correct. That is 88%, and this is actually a very famous metric. According to CompuWare, nearly 9 out of 10 consumers who abandon a poorly performing website say they're less likely to return. So that's not a small margin, right? Now, metrics like these, it tells us performance isn't a nice to have. It's a proper gatekeeper for retention these days. Like every millisecond of delay is a user we may never see again. On that same note, right, let's take a look at a tougher question actually. So for a moment, forget about the new users, right? Let's think about our loyal customers. So what fraction of consumers will walk away from a brand they love after just one bad experience? Votes have started coming in. Okay, so the results are mixed. I like it how people have gone for the least option over here. That's 1/5. But yeah, the answer is 1/3. So according to PwC, 32% of consumers will abandon a brand they love after just one bad experience. And this tells us like brand loyalty doesn't protect us the way it used to. In an app economy with endless alternatives, especially in the era of AI where everyone is trying to come up with their own apps, solo business owners, everyone. So a single friction point, right, it can be disastrous, right? A single friction point can be something like a failed payment, a frozen screen, a slow login. Anyways, these are like a lot of negative metrics. Let's flip it to a positive side. So if poor experience drive people away, what's the return on investment on a great experience? So for every dollar you invest in user experience, how much can you expect? And this is our final poll. I assure you, after this we'll get started with the actual topic of the day. Most of you have voted for the larger number, that is $10, 10x. Of course, we want greater returns. But lucky for us, so first they did this study, and their estimate is it's $10 to $100. So that's a 10x to 100x returns. Few investments in our product offer that kind of leverage, and it's not just about making things pretty. It's about making them fast, reliable, and smooth, right? So performance is a core dimension of user experience. And again, throughout this webinar, we'll understand that it's actually the most measurable one. I'm sorry, I'll take a quick pause. Am I audible? Because Apurva, I'm getting on the screen, I'm constantly seeing like an error occurred. Please try again.
Your voice is breaking.
Oh, okay. My voice is breaking.
Debangan, we can do one thing. Apurva can share her screen and you can maybe use your bandwidth for voice only.
Just 1 second. I'll just switch my Wi-Fi. Sorry everyone for the inconvenience. Okay, awesome. For some reason I can't hear you, but okay, if you guys can hear me, I'll continue. And just let me know via chat, right, if my voice breaks again. Okay, so we've discussed all of these metrics, and these metrics, they aren't for like nothing, right? There's obviously a reason we are talking about this. So this particular, the metrics that you see on your screen, this is the competitive reality. And these are also the metrics that triggered the idea behind this webinar. Your users don't compare your app only to your last release. They compare it to the best app they've used recently in any category. I've picked banking and financial services, media and streaming, e-commerce. There are over 8,000 apps in the US App Store alone, nearly 1,000 streaming platforms globally, 1.3 million e-commerce stores in North America, and over 500 UPI-enabled apps in India. And I'll be honest, these metrics are arbitrary. If all of us together run a Google search right now, we might get different numbers. Not because there are so many sources, like research firms, consultancies, or blog writers, but these numbers actually keep changing that frequently. My personal favorite is this one, the one on the bottom corner. So 13.3 million sites today, they've got e-commerce tech installed. These are not e-commerce stores. They could be listicles, personal portfolio sites, regular blogs. They may be selling merch, but they're creating baselines for what users should expect. For example, Shopify really changed the game for everyone in the e-commerce sector, right? But again, looking at these numbers, right, let's not get scared, right? Because if you're being honest, we're not competing with 500 apps, let alone a million. We're really competing with the top 10 in our category, and that top 10, those top 10 companies, they make the market hyper competitive. So the question is, how do we win in a hyper competitive market like this, right? A market which is already saturated. Now, all the three options that you see, I've grayed out two of them, I know, but all these three options are valid. The only reason, like increasing marketing spend, fair enough, unique IP, business model, they're all areas we can explore. But we have to think from a engineering and product lens. What do we have to offer? And a good exercise over here is thinking of the streaming scene right now. Right, today, content is a commodity. Major producers license the content, and then streaming companies like Netflix and Prime, they would deliver it to us. Now, imagine if a series or movie is available on both Netflix and Prime, right? Which one would you prefer? We can take another example. If a particular item that you're looking to buy is available on both Amazon and Flipkart or AliExpress, where would you buy it from? And that's product experience for you. All of us here sort of understand that. But when we try to work on performance improvements, right, we run into certain challenges. The very first one, most organizations have zero visibility into market standards for application performance. Right? Companies today don't know how fast their competitors' app launch, how smoothly they scroll, or how their login flows compare. Second, comparative, all of the comparisons that we have today, right? Majority of it relies on guesswork. It could be something like app store ratings, user surveys, manual teardowns. Now, none of these are objective enough for engineering decisions. Third, without real baselines, engineering targets are usually arbitrary, right? Teams set goals based on internal intuition and not market reality. And the result is that performance gaps would go unnoticed. There's silent churn, investments get misdirected. It becomes very, very chaotic for an engineering and product team to actually improve the product or the experience in a scenario like this. So here, the question is how do we overcome this? Right? Let's look at the testing maturity spectrum. 73% of the teams do functional testing before release. Right now, that's table stakes today. Accessibility testing drops to 38%. Performance benchmarking only 22%. And finally, peer benchmarking, right? Where you are comparing your application's performance against competitors before you ship, right? That's less than 5% today. So this could be the unfair advantage we are looking for. Now, why is it the unfair advantage, right? What is the traditional way of benchmarking? How do people do it? So analyst reports from Gartner and Forrester, these are the most common one, but the problem is they're published only once a year, too infrequent for team shipping every sprint. They give you category level findings, but not app versus app comparisons. And obviously, these reports, they come with a premium price. Then we've got public benchmarks from different developer blogs. There are very famous blogs from Meta, Google, McKinsey has their own, BCG Gamma has their own. A lot of these top tier firms or tech companies, they have their blogs. And they offer broad web averages. For example, the very metrics that we were discussing in the poll, they're all from these blogs. But the problem here is that these aren't our like mobile app or transactional flow specific. So the test conditions, they don't match our users, and usually the information, it's sort of optimized for SEO, right? It's also, these blogs are a way to market their tech capabilities, right? So not good, but not really great for our engineering decisions. Finally, the manual teardowns, and the most effective of all of these. But problem with manual teardowns is it's one-time snapshots. It's not continuous. It's not statistically valid, and it's also prone to confirmation bias. Usually, we are the ones tearing down the application, or we hire an agency to do it for us. Right? These are, again, because of these reasons, these are also resource intensive, can't repeat it. So none of these approaches really give us what we actually need. That is continuous, objective, apples to apples performance data against specific competitors. Now, before we go into how we perform, why these things become a challenge, I want to discuss two quick stories with all of you. The very first one, a senior executive at a major streaming platform. They've got around 125 million users, this particular platform. He was at an airport traveling somewhere. He put on his headphones, and obviously he's executive at that streaming platform. So he opened his own app and it started buffering. And then he suddenly switched to a competitor's app and he realized that their competitor's app works flawlessly. So that moment for him raised a very critical question, that is this a one-off case where my app is buffering but my competitor's app isn't? Or is this the case for the millions of users I have? Are they all experiencing such a performance, such issues whenever there is a degraded network situation? So this is where we started working with them. We benchmarked their platform against the other popular two competitors in the industry, Spotify, Apple Music, across iOS, Android, all sorts of devices, on majorly four dimensions. First one was launch performance, second audio fidelity, search and scroll latency, and frame rate and jack analysis. They came to us for the network part, but we went the full mile because again, all it's a complete unified experience. Now, the outcome, the findings of this were very simple. So first, we were able to identify, yes, whatever, how their app performs under certain network, under degraded network conditions. The initial thing that triggered this entire exercise, right? It is true. Under constrained network conditions, the platform completely failed while competitors kept playing. But the other good thing that came out of this benchmarking was, particularly the audio fidelity one, loves benchmarking, is it gave product and marketing teams hard data behind their audio quality claims. So they claimed that their audio is one of the best in the market. And yes, that was true. Under the right network conditions, they did outperform the competitors. It's just under the network conditions, they failed. But the actual outcome, like for the team, was engineering got specific fixable targets instead of vague complaints from App Store reviews. Another case like this, so this is a popular chat application. They wanted to expand to MENA and APAC regions, markets with high device fragmentation where most users run mid-range Android devices. So we set up benchmarking across Android and versus iOS, flagship versus mid-range devices, stable versus degraded networks, covering 8 countries with real networks. And we measured critical user journeys like time to upload and send a video on their chat app, time to send a text message, right from you've hit send to it receiving to the other. And then how much CPU memory and battery was consumed during these entire exercises. For them, of course, right, because they were expanding, they wanted to have like a best-in-class performance, because again, the market is saturated even for chat applications, unfortunately. So they found a lot of interesting things that they could work on. iOS outperformed, Android is everywhere, below 1 Mbps. Android degraded sharply with login failures, videos and errors, and broken thumbnails. Right, the performance varied by market, and low-end devices, of course, degraded across every metric. I think that was we were expecting that. Now, again, the important thing for the team needed this data urgently, and they were able to receive it. And instead of like having a blind launch, now they knew what to fix on before launching in the market and where to optimize their application. Now, this is all good, but how does it really work? So here at HeadSpin, it's also a service, it's a platform capability. I won't go too much into the service and the HeadSpin part of it, but I want to help you understand what's the philosophy, like what's the approach. So the very first thing that a company, right, if they want to do it at their own place as well, is discovery and scoping, right? Identifying the problems, defining the objectives. For example, for the senior executive at the airport, it was, does the application buffer when the network conditions aren't great, right? Now, if we have selected the user journeys, that could be something like launch the app, log in, search for the music, play the music. For the chat application, it could be something like launch the app, find the contact, type in your message, and then hit send. Now, execution and monitoring frequency is very important in the two cases. So one case, they are competing with the giants, so they needed continuous data. The other company, they just needed information so that they can launch in the market. So that was adequate enough. So you have to also figure out what is the frequency you want of this, like how continuous you want this data stream to be. Once you've done that, device selection. So device selection is important because again, we want accurate data, right? If you're spending time to run tests for ourselves, for our competitors, let's make sure the environment that we are running it is as accurate to the actual condition as it is. So again, selecting the device, real ones, of course, becomes very important. And then choosing the KPIs and the user journeys. So this is more about our platform. So we support up to 130 plus KPIs. But then do we need to select all 130 plus KPIs, or which are the KPIs depending upon the user journeys, what it's for us? I'll explain that in a minute. And then finally, of course, once you have run your tests, you've gathered your data, then the next step becomes very obvious, is that we have to interpret that data. We have to, I don't want to use the word storytelling, but at least like stitching it in a way that it becomes actionable for different teams. And of course, it's data, so we've got like the hard baselines that we require. So moving on, the user journeys and the KPIs. This becomes the important part because essentially, this is the data that we are talking about, right? These are, so for example, for any digital native company, if we have got an app, we are launching the app, and we all have smartphones. We are all multitasking the whole time. So we are switching between apps. So the cold start and then warm launch, it becomes very important. So there we have got KPIs like app launch time, screen change, login authentication flow. We want to track the networking bytes, HTTP throughput, application CPU usage. So each journey maps to specific KPIs over here. If you look at this slide, for media and streaming apps, the focus shifts more to video playback and on weak networks, right? And KPIs also change. So for example, in the normal ones, we were focusing more on time, load times based KPIs or render times. We also had impact score. This is the proprietary KPIs of HeadSpin. But for a media company, we would focus purely on something like VMOS, VMAF. VMAF is the one that Netflix uses, by the way. Video IQ is something our proprietary, it's built on top of UVQ. But of course, just one KPI wouldn't define an experience. It has to be paired with other KPIs. For example, here, media KPIs like VMOS and VMAF has been paired with network KPIs like Wi-Fi signal strength and download speed. And I've only taken an example over here. So if I move to telecom or like a banking and financial, I've got other KPIs, for example, 5G KPIs. Not everyone is watching Netflix at the leisure of their home with their Wi-Fi. They're traveling in a metro and that's the only 1 hour they get in the day when they can watch their TV series or movie. So again, suddenly these KPIs also become very important for media and streaming. The whole idea is we've got the KPIs, right? There are different KPIs for different situations. It's very important that we identify these KPIs based on the user journeys. Now, we have passed this, I think, the first and probably the second one as well, right? We've decided our user journeys, what are our KPIs that we are going to capture. So next is, how do we extract these benchmarks at scale? So you start with a test suite. Now, this test suite is not just going to be for your application, it's going to be for your peer application as well. It's going to include any, let's say, platforms, right? Or OS versions. For example, we've got iPhones over here, we've got Pixels, we've got Samsung Galaxy S24, right? Depending upon your requirements, we start with one test suite and then we execute it. There's also parallelly, as these tests are being executed on all these applications, the performance is being captured. And once we've captured the performance, it's time for reporting. This is a snapshot of how the HeadSpin platform also works. I'll do a quick demo after this. But the whole idea is we pick the devices, run the tests, both for our application, for our peer application, capture whichever KPIs are important. I've taken very basic KPIs here like CPU usage, memory, frames, and then network download speeds. But again, we don't have any limitations of KPIs. So HeadSpin, the platform, currently supports up to 130 plus KPIs. It's important that we choose the right one for us. And once we have done that, then how do we interpret the data? How do we visualize the data? That becomes the next important thing. So for that, I'll quickly switch my screen. I've prepared a small demo. I hope my screen is visible, at least like more than visible, legible. So I picked two applications for this. Two websites, Etsy and Shein. So these are again our common e-commerce sites, and I had the same very common user journey I created. Is you launch the application, search for something, add it to cart, right? And let me do one thing. Let me go ahead and quickly run these test scripts while I show you the platform, so that we don't have to look at the boring terminal. Okay, I had second. I'll just copy the here. Okay, connecting to HeadSpin device. I've selected a iPhone 16 Plus. Let me go back and show it to you. How does it look like on the web UI while it runs? So once I log into the HeadSpin platform, so these are all of the platforms that we see. These are all of the devices. So currently these two devices. So the reason it says stop over here is because I'm running the test on this device. For my test, I've selected these two devices. So I think Etsy is on this one and Shein would be on this one. Now here, depending upon where our competitors are from, we've got a list of all of the countries that we have. So currently there's only US. If I scroll down, I've got South Africa, I've got Indonesia, I've got India. The whole point is whichever device model that you require, right? I was running the tests on iPhone 16 Plus, but if you want older device models like iPhone 11 or maybe other Android devices like Xiaomi Note 9, all of those are available at HeadSpin. If there's any particular... Sorry, am I not audible?
I can hear you.
Okay. Okay. I think Venkat, then it might be something on your end because I don't know. Everyone, please feel free to let me know because I think so. My colleague, right? I think she can hear me, but if any of you can't hear me, please feel free to ping in the chat. I think we can look into it. Okay, so moving on, we were talking about the device cloud. Again, if you remember, the very first step was selecting the right devices, right? The devices become our test environment. It's important for all the cases. So that is the very first step. Once we start running the test, again, I don't have to, so this will start the manual testing. Actually, or what I can do in my case is because I ran the test, I ran automated tests, so I can simply go here, automation configuration. I can extract the WebDriver URL from here, the capabilities, and then put it in my Appian script. Now, once these tests are running, we've got performance sessions. So this is where all of the test sessions that we run are being captured. And this is also the place that we use to see how do we compare these testing. So this is the one, these are the ones that I just ran. One is still running. Just so that we have results, I already had run multiple tests earlier today. So I'll show you one of them. So this is the one from Etsy. And if you see, we've got the video over here as I move. The Shein one was a better example. It was much faster. Oh yeah. So here, simply I started with, I launched the application. It was a cold start. And then I think my network is might be a bit janky today. Really sorry for that inconvenience, everyone. But yeah, again, this is a time series view. So while I move again, obviously moving my cursor helps you see how the test progress in the video over here. But we are also seeing all of the metrics that we are able to capture. So we've got the video quality MOS. VMOS is not really important over here because again, there's an e-commerce site. But if this were a media site, I might want to track. But for the e-commerce side, things I would for sure want to track is download speeds, HTTP throughput, network in bytes, network out bytes. There are device KPIs like net CPU, memory used percent, or custom KPIs like what is the time to first load. So this is the entire duration. Once I started the tests, just zoom it a little bit. So loading the pages after turning on the device, it started at 2.89 seconds and it ended at 11.36 seconds. So from launching the application to reaching this particular state, which is the home page, it took 8.47 seconds. And if we follow any of the metrics that, again, the public web averages that we know, anything greater than 3 seconds, you slowly start to lose 5 to 10% of your user base, right? Because as a people have sort of started to lose that patience. So it's very important that we track not just this, but all the other things. For example, somewhere over here, I've started searching for the T-shirt. Yeah. So all of these interactions need to be tracked and measured across. For example, here I've taken Etsy's example. We can take many other examples as well. There are other files available, any artifacts, for example, session recording, we see it live, but there are HAR files, there are packet cap, PCAP files. These files, right, if you want to use it with other tools like Charles Proxy, right? So you can simply download these files and compare what's happening. But now, this is for Etsy, that is for Sheet. If I have to compare both these applications, how are they performing side by side? So I've used this particular feature, compare sessions. I've already added the current session and then the other session from back there. And once I hit compare session, it takes me to a screen like this. For both the tests, I used the same device model but different devices. You can see the device IDs over here. Same location. Now here I can see the different network calls across these two, so session A and session B. We can also see the issues that have popped up. So all of it can be compared side by side. And that is how we do a benchmark. We effectively do that. We've come to the end of our session. I hope I was able to give you a good idea of why performance benchmark is important, and if you're looking into it, how you can actually perform performance benchmarking. I think I can open the chat for Q&A now. Team, please feel free to start putting in the questions either in the chat or in the Q&A. And if you don't have any questions, you are convinced, we can wrap up the session. Okay, so we've got a question. Can AI be used to gather this data or run tests like this. So parts of it, of course. AI can't fully replace the entire structure that we have over here. For example, there are no alternative for real devices. But something like creating these test suits, like if I just exit, so the test scripts that I showed you earlier, they can also be created via our own internal tool, HSIs, which is what we usually. So this is where we can select the application, select the explain the user journey that we want to create the test script for. So these are the places where we can use AI. So mostly the generation part, the orchestration part, the analysis part, the execution part, and the performance capture part. I think that's where AI is still weak, far from it. How can I perform this locally? Is there a benefit to this? So performing this locally becomes easy. End of the day, if I just close this, these are all Appium scripts that I just ran. And of course, we can run such tests easily locally, but the difference is, again, I'll come back to this architecture diagram, is one, we can run locally on our browsers, but if it's a mobile app or a mobile website, we need real devices. So one, HeadSpin helps you with real devices, and second is the performance capture. Capturing 130 plus KPIs while it is running from the device, it can be resource intensive. Right, things may break. So that is where HeadSpin has perfected it for over years, the performance capture part. So those are the reasons locally, right? We won't be able to get this data, the KPI data, which is again the whole point of the benchmarking. But yeah, we can run it locally to see our experiments. And I think we have a final question. Will HeadSpin do this for us end to end? Yes. So this is actually a service that we provide. These are some of our customers. We do have more customers. These are the ones that just like we have case studies about. I think in the email where we share the recording, we can share contacts with you, right? So if you want to get in touch with our sales team or our services team, we can totally help with that. Yeah, this is actually a service that we provide, and the platform is, of course, that's it. I think Apurva answered all of the questions from chat and Q&A.
Oh, yes. If anyone have any questions, you can ask.
We can wrap up. I can give you all 15 minutes back. Thank you so much for joining this call. I hope you got some value out of it. Thanks, everyone. Have a nice day. Bye-bye.